Anybody who's been following my channel for a while now knows who Kirby is. Heck, even if you don't, you probably still know who he is. Heck, even if you don't, you probably still know who he is. He's one of Nintendo's most recognizable characters. He's got tons of merchandise, his own food cafe, and, most importantly, dozens of incredible games. He needs no introduction, hence why he's had a paragraph of this script devoted to introducing him. Isekai, on the other hand, is a term a lot of people might not know. It's a genre of anime where, hey, stick with me, don't leave, a character gets transported to another world one way or another and starts living a new life. Some examples of Isekai include Re:Zero, Konosuba, Dragon Tales. Now that we know what an Isekai is, or in the rarer case, now that we know what a Kirby is, we can get to the meat of the video. Kirby's Epic Yarn is a game where Kirby gets turned into yarn by an evil sorcerer because Kirby ate his food. This meets the high bar that Kirby plots have been setting for decades now, but there's one specific aspect of this plot that's gone ignored for far too long now. Is Kirby's Epic Yarn an Isekai? Our journey for the answer begins, of course, at the very beginning of the game. There are some important details to note from the very beginning. In particular, the game starts in Dreamland. Save this for later because this is important. Kirby angers Yin Yarn by trying to eat his Metamato. Yin Yarn responds by sucking Kirby into his magic sock, taking him to an unknown place where, yes, the grass feels like pants. At this point, Kirby is already made of yarn, so it's rather easy to assume that what turned Kirby into yarn was being absorbed into the magic sock. Not every day that Kirby is the one being inhaled, but that's irrelevant for this video. But that theory gets shot down immediately because in this very cutscene, it clearly states that
lately, there have been rumors of a caped sorcerer going around turning people into yarn. That's right, yarn.
Once Kirby is in Patchland, he has no way of interacting with Dreamland. The only way that he gets back is through Prince Fluff's magic sock. Without that, there's really no way of getting in touch with the people of Dreamland, or anything in Dreamland itself, actually. So if people have been being turned into yarn in Dreamland, then clearly this magic sock isn't what's doing the trick. And for the record, when Prince Fluff travels to Dreamland with Kirby, he stays in his yarn form, so the reverse doesn't apply either. This is what we call consistency. Since Yin Yarn transformed the other citizens of Dreamland into yarn, he must have done the same to Kirby after sending him to Patchland. And yes, the same reasonably applies to Day-to-Day and Meta Knight as well. We have to establish this because in relation to Dreamland, we have no idea where Patchland even is. It is worth noting that, at the beginning of the game, Kirby tells Prince Fluff that he's from another world. That right there sounds like concrete evidence that this is an Isekai, but this is mere conjecture on Kirby's part. Besides, we all know that Kirby isn't very brain smart. There's no definitive proof. If the narrator had said it, that would be one thing. But Kirby saying it, after just finding out that eating the Metamato allowed him to turn into a car and who knows what else. What the narrator does say implies that Patchland isn't a separate world, it's simply a separate kingdom. Whenever you collect a piece of the magic yarn that stitches Patchland back together, he specifically says,
"The yarn weaved its way into the fabric of the kingdom and stitched two pieces of Patchland together."
An entirely different world isn't just a kingdom, it's a lot more than that. It's an entire world. A kingdom is just a kingdom. But clearly, that same reasoning is exactly why Patchland can't be on Popstar, right? The kingdom was split into 7 different pieces. There are planetary gaps in between, with voids leading to the cold, empty reaches of outer space. You can't just live near that. But see, Popstar as a planet, star, is large enough to where Patchland being split wouldn't affect Dreamland itself. That isn't very decisive, but what is decisive is when Yin Yarn absorbs Day-to-Day into the magic sock. The narrator, the one character who we can rely on for objective, factual information, as he is the storyteller who knows everything about the story, asks,
"Could no one stop Yin Yarn from tearing apart the very fabric of Dreamland?"
Fabric. Dreamland. Not Popstar. Fabric of the kingdom. Oh. Remember when I said the game starting in Dreamland was important? Even if Patchland started as a kingdom made of fabric and yarn, which isn't important to the video for reasons I'm just about to explain. Gosh, we're never taught patience. It's clear that Yin Yarn has the magic power to transform not only people into yarn, but also landscapes. In gameplay, we see that's exactly what happens to Dreamland. Again, not Popstar in its entirety, just Dreamland. And once everything is made of yarn and fabric, Yin Yarn has the ability to split said landscapes into separate pieces. While I have to question the logistics of why he would even do this, that's not important for this video. Again, that's boring, I know, but hey, this is a serious video for serious people.
Yeah, that's it, sure.
There's also the question of how the two magic socks exist. One is a portal to Patchland, and one is a portal to Dreamland. Unfortunately, there's too little explained about the magic socks in-game, and in our current reality, scientists have yet to discover the inner workings of socks, so we don't have real-world evidence to go off of. On the one hand, this could be a magical device to teleport between worlds made by some higher being, not the beings who made things like the Star Rod. We can see in Star Allies that the magic sock has no correlation to that spoiler fest. But on the other hand, this could just be a method of fast travel on Popstar. Kirby normally wouldn't need it because of the Warp Star, but hey, desperate times call for desperate measures, right? Either way, both sides of this are mere conjecture, with no concrete evidence going either way. Sadly, there's no concrete evidence in favor of Epic Yarn actually being an isekai so far. The only bit of evidence pointing towards it actually being an isekai is when Kirby tells Prince Fluff that he's from another world. But since the only reliable source of information is from a narrator who never describes Patchland as another world, that's mere conjecture. Circumstantial evidence, not fit for court. You can't even say Kirby grows or shrinks when he goes to Patchland. We see normal Kirby standing right next to Prince Fluff at the end of the game, and height-wise, Kirby's the same. Of course, this brings up the question, where even is Patchland? Again, the game doesn't really give us enough information on this. Reliable information, but with all the evidence we have, it's safe to say that, at the very least, it takes place in the same universe or galaxy or whatever as Popstar. Part of what defines Isekai is that it takes place in an entirely different world or parallel universe, where there are many things different in said world than in the world we currently live in. While I can't confirm if Patchland is actually on Popstar or not, I can, at the very least, confirm that it shares many similarities to Popstar, including certain species. Waddle Dee, Brontobert, Gordo, the UFO enemies, etc. Many of these appear before Yin Yarn starts mass-producing Waddle Dee, too. Looking at the facts, I would actually say it makes the most sense that Patchland is part of Popstar, but since I can't prove that 100%, I can, at the very least, say that all of the evidence points to Patchland, bare minimum, not being in another world. There are far too many similarities here for Patchland to be another world. Or, at the very least, the kind of other world found in most isekai. There are isekai out there in which cabbage and lettuce function differently. Are you really gonna say that Patchland is in another world when the biggest fundamental difference is that you need to shake a tree to find tomatoes in a tree? Okay, so I actually got so invested in writing the script that I typed the phrase, shake a tree to find tomatoes in a tree, and I didn't notice until I was finished, so I'm keeping it. You can't stop me from keeping it. You also can't stop me from saying that, despite how obvious it would seem on a surface level, Kirby's Epic Yarn is actually not an isekai. It's more of a buddy road trip. That's eerily accurate, but also really nasty. Some might say I'm taking this whole thing really literally, and Epic Yarn is just a fun game about how the possibilities of what one can do with yarn is limitless, with strong imagination. But I don't care. It's not an isekai. Happy April Fools. Bye!
You dumbass! Can't we go on one quest where you don't screw everything up? We could have taken out the king and princess nice and easy, but no! Now we gotta deal with them all!